Welcome to the In All Things podcast. Here, we talk about everything from friendship and personalities to contentment and faith. Our goal? To encourage you to seek Christ in all things. Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Sierra. Let's imagine you're in my living room and dive into real conversation. Well, welcome back to my living room, everybody. I really like to picture, as my intro says, I like to picture you guys sitting in my living room having this conversation with me. And honestly, I live in a really small apartment, so I am truly recording this in my living room. So I hope that as you guys listen, that you can picture yourself sitting on my couch, enjoying this conversation as well. Today, I wanted to talk about how we can honor Christ in our homes. And this is something I actually did a talk on at my church recently. It's really applicable to everyone at every stage. This topic brought back a lot of memories as I reflected on how my mom did such an amazing job of building a welcoming home. When I did this talk at my church, the theme was kind of make your house a haven. And I really loved that image, and I thought, what a wonderful goal it is. I imagine that no matter what life stage we are in right now, we want our homes to be welcoming and safe to our friends, to our family, our children, and even to strangers. So I want to talk about what that looks like and how we can attain that goal realistically and practically. Jani Ortlund said, "I believe that a godly home is a foretaste of heaven. Our homes, imperfect as they are, must be a haven from the chaos outside. They should be a reflection of our eternal home where troubled souls find peace, weary hearts find rest, hungry bodies find refreshment, lonely pilgrims find communion, and wounded spirits find compassion." And I just think that's the perfect summary of what I'm going to be talking about. So I grew up in a home that was very homey. My mom always made sure that anyone who walked through the door felt welcome. No matter who it was, they were equally treated as a guest and as family. They got the special treatment, but also they could help themselves to anything that they wanted. And my siblings and I never once questioned if we were loved or if home was a safe place to be. It was the place that all of our friends wanted to be because we had the big play center outside and we had an open refrigerator. We had a quiet little neighborhood for biking and a safe house to hang out in. And again, my parents were welcoming to everybody. And honestly, even today as adults, my siblings and I love to be home, and our friends still like to go back because our parents are the cool ones. But looking back, I can see that while we lacked nothing, our house wasn't huge or super nice by any means. We didn't have expensive furniture or perfectly white carpet, and our house wasn't always picked up. But it was always clean. Lived in, as my mom would say, but clean. And as I reflect on that, I kind of think that made a huge difference in how I view my childhood home and my childhood in general. We did not live in a pigsty, but we also didn't live in a house where everything was perfect. Not that we didn't have rules, but my mom never idolized her home. She did not focus on what it looked like. She made sure it was safe and welcoming. But honestly, I see so many people idolizing their home. They want to live in the perfect Pinterest country farmhouse, or maybe the Magnolia-style cottage, or the smart modern home. And I kind of was house hunting earlier this year, and I was thinking the exact same thing. I wanted the cute one. But when I think about the homes that I've ever been welcomed into, it is the houses that are a little messy and not right out of a magazine that are the most homey. And maybe that's the klutz in me talking, like, I feel like if I spill something, maybe I won't get kicked out of those homes. But it also could just be the relaxed environment. And that doesn't mean that your house can't look nice or be cute. But a lot of that has to do with you as the owner of the house. You are going to have a preference. White walls or gray walls or brown walls? Do you want quotes or scenery on canvases on the wall? Do you want hardwood carpet? Do you want hardwood floor or carpet? But if I were to come over to your house, the color of your walls, the decoration on your walls, or what kind of flooring you have is not going to determine how welcoming your house is. It is your attitude about your house and about those who come into your home. I remember visiting somebody's house once, and I really couldn't tell you who it was, but I think it was my mom and I that were there. And we walked into her living room and I sat on the couch. The woman snapped at me and asked me how old I was. And I don't remember how old I was, but I remember having to sit on the floor because no one under the age of 16 was allowed on that couch. And in that home, I did not feel welcome. My mom later told me it didn't make her feel very welcome either. Growing up, I had a friend whose home rules were no kids in her family, or even when they had friends over, could walk through the front door. They were only allowed to walk in through the garage door. We knew others who weren't allowed to lean up against the wall near the entryway to put your shoes on so that the wall would stay clean. Now, I am the most uncoordinated person sometimes, and I need a wall to lean on, or I'm going to tip over. Or I think about the family that we knew that at dinner after their dad got home, he would not allow the kids to say anything. They were just allowed to eat. Now, I want to add that there may be people listening to this who have similar rules, or you don't see anything wrong with that. And all of us are different. We all have different standards of our homes, and we have different backgrounds and personalities that lead to those standards. But I will say that as a kid, I took notice of these things with the people that I knew. And to me, it did not feel like a very welcoming home or a place that I wanted to hang out. So I want to add, for those of you who don't know, I am not married and I am not a mom. But I do have the desire to be both one day. So I feel like I'm always making mental notes and paying attention to my friends or other families, or reflecting on how my mom did it or other friends' houses were when I was a kid, as I'm sure you've now noticed. So one practical thing that I think about is our homes need to be a safe haven for everyone in our family. And that includes you. So when your husband comes home from work, how can it be a reflection of heaven to him, if we go back to that Jani Ortlund quote? Or how can it be a reflection of heaven to you when he comes home? I have heard men complain about their stay-at-home wives who are staying at home all day with their kids and complain about how messy their house is when they get home from work. And I've also heard them admit that they will make those comments to her. Well, that is not creating a safe haven for that wife after spending all day at home with their kids. What are you doing the very second that he walks in the door after coming home from work? Are you giving him a list of things to do the instant that he comes home? And then also think about your kids. Think about how your home can be a safe haven for each one of them. And this will probably change over time. Everyone's needs are going to change as your kids grow up and your life stages transition. So a safe haven is not only made by the physical aspect of your actual house structure, but by the physical relationships within your home. Are listening ears available for those kids when they need it? Is a helping hand offered regularly? Do you make intentional family time? So some suggestions here are to be making sure that you have dinner together as often as possible. Having a movie or a game night each week. Maybe going on some special outings like once a month. Also ask if there are specific boundaries or rules in your home that do make it a safe place for everyone. Like making sure that music or movies or even video games are being vetted to make sure that they are age appropriate. These are all things I think about when I think about creating a future home for my future family. At this point in my life right now, for me, opening up my home is a huge part of making my home a haven. So I love hosting people, welcoming them in, making them feel at home, whether it be for maybe a small group event, having some game nights with friends or dinners, or just having friends come hang out. A big thing with this is that my apartment is available anytime, and I try to offer it as often as possible. So having that open house policy is something that I strongly desire. Doesn't mean I'm always taken up on it, but my circle of friends know that if they ever need a place to go, me and my apartment are here. So another thing about this atmosphere is how we talk about our home, how we talk about our kids. Do we always make it sound like it's work and it's a burden? Again, I'm not a mom, but I've noticed that throughout a lot of mommy culture, it is common for moms to say that they need alcohol to get them through the day, or they need alcohol to reward them at the end of the night. And that is not creating a safe haven for your children, because if they hear you talking about that, they're going to think that's a discouragement on them. Like, oh my gosh, my parents need alcohol in order to take care of me. I must be a burden. And we don't want to create that for our families. So this all just goes back to how we talk about our families and our homes. Another thing that I think about is keeping my house neat and clean. I currently live in an apartment alone, but as I mentioned, earlier this year I was house hunting, and so I have been thinking about when that time comes for me to have my first home. But honestly, even as it stands now, I sometimes have a hard time keeping it clean all the time, my little apartment, which just feels ridiculous to me. And I'm sure that if you are a mom listening, you are rolling your eyes, because it is a 750 square feet space with no children running around making a mess. But I am learning that without specific productivity or organizational habits in place, keeping a home is going to be difficult for anybody. I recently took a 1-week online email course to help with productivity, and I will link that in the show notes if you're interested in doing that as well. And a lot of what she talked about in that course had to do with finding out what is most important to you, identifying what is difficult for you, and keeping it all very simple. Because even I can say that once you have a child running around, you need flexibility and simplicity. So one of the biggest tips I got from her was to identify what are a few things that stress me out. Maybe that's having a messy kitchen or getting a late start to your day, and then recognize what some of your big time wasters are. So for example's sake, let's just say that it is doing all of the dishes at the end of the day and scrolling through social media before bed. So there's a way to connect those two time wasters to the stress areas. So the solutions could be that maybe you do all the dishes after every meal. It would take 5 minutes 3 times a day rather than maybe upwards of 20 minutes to get all of them done. And then you can relax. And then if you're staying up late to scroll, you're probably getting up later or groggier in the morning than you want to be. And so those are very basic examples, but they are also pretty practical. Another suggestion was to create set routines that are simple and flexible. So there are many different ways to integrate a cleaning routine to fit your schedule. You can pick a day of the week and do all of the cleaning then. You can assign an area of your house to a day of the week so that you're like cleaning bathrooms on Monday and the living room on Tuesday, bedrooms on Wednesday. Or you could assign a task to a day of the week, like dusting on Monday, vacuuming is on Tuesday, bathrooms are on Wednesday. Whatever works for you. Growing up, we would house clean on Saturdays. That was what it was. And at this stage in my life, I kind of just pick a task for the time that I have when I'm home, and I just clean the kitchen one day and do the floors another day and clean the bathroom. It's not really a set routine. It just is what flows with my schedule for that given week. But again, at this stage in my life, I can do that. If I had a bigger house, I honestly think I would choose the route of assigning an area to a day. But this is going to look different for every single one of us. And the great thing is we can adjust it as our seasons of life change or as our preferences change. Another question to think about when we think of productivity is, does everybody have a task? So this won't apply as much to people who live alone because, let's face it, we are the ones with all of the responsibility on our shoulders for our home. But for everybody else, the work that goes into keeping a home should not be on one person. And so if you have roommates, that applies to everyone in the house. If you are just married and don't have kids, that then applies and means both of you should be sharing that responsibility. If you have kids, then every single one in that family should be participating in household responsibility as long as they are able to. So setting up tasks that are within somebody's strengths is a good way to make sure that they don't hate it as much as usual. I know that kids tend to hate chores, and I get it, but they also do need to feel needed. So teaching them responsibility is as important as making sure that they know that they are an essential part of the home. My responsibility in the house growing up was the bathroom. I don't know how old I was when I got started, but I loved going into the bathroom, shutting the door, cleaning the toilet, probably dancing in the mirror or whatever 12-year-olds do that's embarrassing, cleaning the counter, and I knew I was good at it, and so I enjoyed doing it. And to be honest, to this day, bathrooms just don't scare me. I do not mind cleaning bathrooms. So make sure that everybody has a job. And this does not just apply if you have children. If you have roommates, if you have a spouse, this is important. I know students who have gone to college and they'll be in a dorm with 3-4 other people, and there is only one person doing all of the work. And that's just not fair to put all of the responsibility on one person. And I would say the exact same thing to moms who have all of that work of cooking and cleaning and chauffeuring and all of that stuff. That should not all be on one person. Training kids up to have the skills of simple cleaning is so important. I remember at one of my previous jobs, there was a young adult that was coming to start cleaning for us, but I had to teach him how to clean a toilet when he first started. But we need to be teaching these skills before they go out into the world. So I want to point out a biblical example of this. I know the Proverbs 31 woman kind of can sound cliche sometimes, but she is an example given in the Bible of what a godly woman looks like, and I do think that is still applicable to men. Proverbs 31:13 says that she selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. Those words, eager hands, means she is not afraid of hard work. And we can see that in the surrounding verses. She is not lazy. And we see in verse 15, she is motivated. It says that she gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it takes quite a bit of motivation to get up while it is still night. And that is motivation that I do not have. All right? But truthfully, it doesn't matter necessarily what exact time she gets up that we need to be paying attention to, but what it says about her. She puts her family first by being motivated to work hard. And I want to leave you with this. Ministry outside of the home is so important. We are called to that. But when you have a family, they become your primary ministry. And that is not just for women. That is for men too. And if you don't have a family, it is going to be your closest community. We often look at the fruits of the Spirit as the fruits that have to be exhibited when we do ministry outside. Because to be honest, that's when it's easiest to show those fruits. We can be honest and say that it is hard to show the fruits of the Spirit inside the home. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control should all be practiced first and foremost in our primary place of ministry. And when we show those, our home will become a haven. Thank you so much for joining today's conversation. I hope that this was an encouraging episode as you continue in your walk with the Lord. If it was, please consider leaving a review on iTunes. It really helps with the app's algorithm and allows In All Things to be accessible to even more people. Share with your friends and give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook. You can find us at In All Things Pod on both of those, and visit our website at inallthingspodcast.com. See you next time.